Tēnā koutou and welcome to this episode of the Manawatū People's Radio and Manawatū Standard By-Election Special Series with Jimmy Ellingham, Senior Reporter from the Manawatū Standard, and me, Fraser Gregg from MPR. And in this series we are interviewing the candidates in the Palmerston North City Council by-election, the hopefuls vying for the seat left vacant by Tangi Utikere after his successful bid for the role of MP for Palmerston North in 2020. And in this episode we have Darroch Ball. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
You just can't stay away from politics then?
No, I love it. I think that I'm passionate about it. I think that I found my niche in life in representation in politics and trying to make the country and the community better, and I want to make sure I can have a spot in carrying that on.
Was it, not to bring up bad memories, but was it a knock to the confidence when you didn't return on list
no,
for New
because I
Zealand
think
First?
every politician knows that that's the reality of politics. And democracy is democracy, and the people speak, and that's part and parcel of the profession. You always know when you go in there that, and I had advice from experienced politicians that have been there a lot longer than I have, that the people decide, and it's a short-term gig. It's you've got to work on 3-year terms and the 3-year career lifespan and cycle in politics, and you've got to make the most of it, and that's what I try to do.
You have not always been in the political space. You've been a secondary school science teacher. You've been an officer in the army. This is quite a shift.
Actually, I think it's quite a natural fit. It was definitely not by design, but looking back when I was an MP, in fact, I was writing my maiden speech in the Parliament and I was thinking back about my previous professions. So the first one I was, as you said, I was in the Army. I was serving the country in the Army. I went from there to serve the youth in our community in the YMCA here in Palmerston North, and secondary school students, serving them in the classroom. I've got a passion for serving others in the community and the country, like I said earlier, and it seemed like a natural sort of a step for me to move into politics.
Congratulations on your appointment as co-leader of the Sensible Sentencing Trust.
Thanks. Yeah.
That's going to be a full-time job, isn't it?
It's a demanding job, that's for sure, and it's a great responsibility. It's a great honour to do that. I've worked closely with the SST for a very long time, and in the previous, I'd say, 3 to 4 years of my political career, my main focus was on law and order and issues surrounding that. I've got a keen interest in ensuring that there's some common sense brought into the lawmakers of the country and the enforcement of the law in the country. And I've just got a really good fit with SST. We've just started getting things off the ground again, but I'm really enjoying it.
Is that going to impact on your ability to be an effective city councillor?
Not at all. I think it's hand in glove, actually, and I think that every councillor should have roles within organisations that really look at social issues within our country and our community, and SST really does that. I think that there are a multitude of sometimes complex social issues that councillors need to deal with. Not only deal with, but be aware of and live and breathe it. And being involved with organisations or causes such as SST is for me with social issues, I think it's quite essential, and I'd encourage every candidate to do it if they're running for council. And I'm hoping that most councillors, and I think that most councillors, current councillors in Palmerston North do, they have other issues and causes that they're involved with, and I encourage that.
I'm not implying that it would impact your ability to be present around the table, but a lot of city councillors see part of their duty as actively engaging and participating in community, going to events, going to public meetings, going to community organisations. That in itself is a full-time gig as well. Will you be able to balance
Well,
this?
I'm not afraid of hard work and effort and putting the time in, and that's exactly what is expected of a councillor and a politician.
You can't be in two places at once.
No, that's true. But there are, precedents set. I mean, if you look at, for example, Lou Finlay, he was the head of the Shepherd's Trust. I think he's retired very recently, but he's a long-term councillor. So it's not, out of the box sort of an issue for me to do that. And I wouldn't put, either organisation, whether it will be my role as the co-leader of SST or as a local councillor at risk at that. I'm in it for the right reasons. I'm not in it for myself. And I wouldn't put my name forward if I didn't think that I'd do a 100% job for the local council.
To what extent will your political leanings and ideology form the basis of your decision making should you be around the council table? Can people expect a sensible sentencing trust or New Zealand First style approach to your decision making, or will you try and be more of the advocate for what the people want, even if you perhaps disagree with that?
Well, first of all, 100% role of the local councillor is to do what the people want, no matter what political persuasion you are. I'm a conservative politician. That's who I am. It's what I do. I've got a track record of it. I've got a proven history of that. Anyone can just look me up and Google me and have a look at the Hansard in Parliament, or for all of my multiple hundreds of speeches in the House and my voting record. That's my bona fides. I don't hide behind that, hide away from that. I'm very proud of that, and that's what I'm running on. I'm not running on any central government ticket. I know that there's current flag-bearing councillors there that run on central government ticket. I think that it's quite frankly outrageous that people do. I think it's even more outrageous that we've got a candidate that's running in with a central government ticket that was told not to by that central government party. There is no room in local government for central government politics. It's as simple as that, and I think it's absolutely disingenuous that some councillors and candidates are doing that.
I'm not suggesting that you have an endorsement or anything, but it's just your own personal politics influencing a particular decision around a table.
Well, personal politics does for every candidate, for every councillor. That's what we are. We're politicians, and we have personal view. And what I was trying to say earlier on is that my personal politics is who I am. I've got a record of that, and if people are wondering what my political stances are on different issues or approaches will be for different issues, it's all there for everyone to see. And I'm proud of my history and the facts and the way I voted in the House and my speeches, because I stand by them all.
I notice you're one of few candidates who have at least acknowledged that they have been campaigning for vote, but also campaigning on specific issues. And I've got a Facebook post up here where you took a little bit of credit for the increased signage at the junction in Ashurst. Is that the sort of active advocacy you would want to continue in council, or would you dial it back a bit into the governance space?
No, I think that that's vitally important. Things like that, specific issues for people. That's what they want and need in a local councillor and any politician, whether it be central government or local government. Politicians that listen to their issues, issues that they've been, in this instance, been crying out for a very long time, and no one seems to be listening. And I don't take any credit for it whatsoever. I just happened to be at the time, in time and place. But what it was is I showed an issue on my social media, and that was specifically affecting, unfortunately for them, a small number of people. And we had to sit down and a talk, and that was, I believe, was the issue, was that there wasn't enough, a sound made by voters for any politician to have a listen to and want to act with it. It was very low priority, but that's the kind of advocacy work that should be expected by every local councillor. I think one of the big differences between my experience in central government and what I can see should be moving forward in local government is that personal on-the-ground grassroots connection with individual ratepayers and residents of your community, and representing their issues and making sure that you're the champion for their issues, no matter how big or small, no matter what political persuasion you think you might agree with. That's what you're there for. They voted for you directly to represent them and solve their issues.
Is that the key to the perennial engagement issue, and engaging ratepayers and citizens of this city in the local government process? Because we've talked in previous interviews around the consultation process and maybe trying to consult more before projects happen or get people engaged in that. And adjacent to that is voter turnout. I mean, this by-election is going to have a woefully low turnout. All predictions are saying that.
Well, I think that's just a perfect storm of voter apathy moving into this election. But going back to what you're saying about the consultation, I think that there's just there's a lot that is said about consultation, but never done. I mean, if you're going to have, I mean, this is probably the problem that was happening in this issue that we're talking about, that road issue, that apparently there was consultation done. There was a meeting somewhere in Ashurst. But
more than one, I believe.
Yeah, but there in town halls that were hundreds of metres, if not kilometres, away from where the actual issue was and where the people were. There was only a certain number of people on a certain road around a certain block that weren't consulted with, that this would directly affect. So, you know, you can't sort of just say you're going to consult and have a couple of meetings. There needs to be true consultation, and that means going around knocking on doors and talking to the people, understanding the effects of issues like this and having some common sense about it, and going knocking on the people's doors that it's going to directly affect. That's genuine consultation.
And is that something that you feel you will be able to address or advocate for or suggest solutions moving forward with the city councils so that it might engage better with ratepayers?
Well, I hope that it's not might get better at consultating. It's essential. That's the bare minimum of making sure that we are doing a genuine consulting process. If we're not, we're failing in our role as local councillors and a council in representing the people. It should be number one, and I don't know why it's not.
And speaking as someone with experience as a secondary school teacher, how do we engage youth? How do we get them to recognise what this city council does and that they should vote in elections and by-elections?
Well, civics education for starters. So it's just about getting young people to understand the importance. I know that's what everyone says, but it's vitally important because at the moment they're not aware of what democracy is, how it is, and how it works, let alone why it's so important to get out there and vote. But I think also that needs to be balanced with the fact that it's not all on the politicians, all on the candidates, all on the councils to push this information to young people. There's an absolute necessity for those individual young people to take responsibility themselves to get involved, to find the information. I mean, even in my generation, and I'm, for want of a better term, youth adjacent, but even in my generation, there was not the technology and information available with one click. With one click, a young person on a cell phone now, they don't have to be at home in front of a PC. They could find out who the candidates are, what they stand for, what their policies are, just their life history, everything in one click. So when we've got young people saying they're disengaged, well, yes, we can take that on the chin as politicians and as candidates and councils who are trying to promote it. But man, it's a two-way street. You've got to. They have to take responsibility, and we have to make sure that they understand they have to take responsibility. That's part of being in a democracy.
Is some of the issue there, though, that the council needs to be in the spaces where youth are? Whereas you say back in our day, because I'm also youth adjacent, there were limited spaces where you could be.
Yeah. Look,
there are infinitely more places. Should the council 100%. Be on TikTok?
Yes. No, seriously. Like if democracy is so important to who we are as a country, as a nation, and obviously that filters down to local government too. But democracy, it's a fundamental about who we are. If we don't have that, if we don't have the basics of that, then we're in trouble. And we can see that around the country, even in Western democracies, they're in trouble with the way that things are running. So any method or process that we can get more information that would make it even slightly easier or better that we can do, we have to do it. Like I said, that's not just one way, it has to be two ways as well.
If you were to summarise the focus of your campaign to become a city councillor, what would you how would you summarise it?
We need a conservative balance on council. There's been a number of, because I've been obviously very politically aware for the last 6 years at least, in being in central government. aware of some issues that local government I disagreed with, the answers that they gave and the decisions that they made, and the political leanings of a number of the current councillors. And I think I've said it in one of my brochures that, or on my website, that one of the fundamental foundations of a robust democracy is ensuring that we've got a balance at the table, that we've got an environment and a conversation that occurs, that there's a balance that's there. I believe that right now that balance isn't there, or it's getting very close to that not being there. And I think that it's essential for the ratepayers and residents of Palmerston North to understand the importance of ensuring that there's a conservative voice at the table, and not only a conservative voice, because there are current councillors in there that do say that they're conservative but aren't quite vocal enough, from my opinion, on issues that are conservative in nature that need to be voiced and the people need to hear it. And that's what I want to bring to the table in that role.
So it's about achieving balance around the table. Does that include things like ethnic diversity, and we've had moves to have Mana Whenua and iwi representation around certain committees at council? Is that all good with you?
Well, can you be more specific?
Well, we've got local iwi appointed to some of the committees, mainly because the move for Maori wards was defeated. Yeah. So the council have ensured there is local iwi representation on some committees, not all. That is unelected, though. So
yeah. So I mean, I've made it clear all over my social media, and people are asking. In fact, I've got it on my website as well, that I'm not in favour of separate Maori wards, and it's not because of the technicality of the Maori ward. It's because of what it means and what it brings, which is unelected representation. So if the local council has, which they have, and in my belief, have found a loophole and wanted to put that representation, unelected representation, on certain committees, there's an issue with me with that, and it's got nothing to do with not understanding the importance of representation or consultation, absolutely 100%, and diversity, absolutely 100%. But when we're starting to sacrifice, which this does and which Maori wards do, the one of the pillars of democracy, which is direct representation, one vote, one person, one system, then that's where I've got a problem with it.
Sorry, Jimmy, I've trounced all over the time dedicated to you. I hope you can get some of the reader and listener questions across. That's
all right, Fraser. Darroch, one of the things people have been asking about is social housing and what your view on that is. Is that something the council should be involved with, do you think?
100%. I was born and raised in a council flat in Auckland, and I understand the essential nature of vulnerable people in vulnerable situations that need a hand up in life, and that's I think that every council should, and I know that Palmerston North City Council is one of very few in the country that actually do that. And I think that anything that we can do as a community and a society and a nation to help vulnerable people to get a hand up and to move forward with their life, we absolutely 100% need to. That those decisions are essential, and we need to make sure that we have the right decision makers that can do that with a common sense approach to it. Because we can't throw every ratepayer's cent at it, but we've got to make sure that capacity is there.
And sorry to rush through these.
I know.
What's your view on cycleways?
I think that in the most part they're nice to haves. I think that if we do put in cycleways, that the decision making around it needs to be a common sense one, insofar as it needs to be there for safety reasons. It needs to be there to ensure that there's connection for all of the transport modes. So I think that there is a place for them, but not at the sacrifice of common sense, and not at the sacrifice of local businesses losing out. We've just got to have that right balance there.
You've mentioned rates increases, and I think one reader at least asks that you've been forecasting a high rates increase for the council. What's that based on? Is that
well, I mean, even if you look at the 10-year plan, they're forecasting a 5-point-something% increase just to cover the debt. We've and they've noted in the debt's going to go from about 100 million to about 360 million over the next 10 years. we've got to be fiscally responsible, especially over the next 10 years, but very much so. I mean, that 10-year plan was written pre-COVID. We've got to take another good look at that, you know. But the rates rises are definitely on the cards, and a double-digit one. So we've got to be fiscally responsible, and that comes back to what I was saying about the cycleways and the nice-to-haves. You know, all for them if we can afford them, and with a little bit of common sense thrown in.
And the final question people have asked us to ask you is, who nominated you and who seconded you?
My two neighbours. You know, they were, because I live in a block of flats, and you know, actually back in December, my neighbour came through and said, "Hey, have you thought about running for local council? You're the only one that makes sense, and you know, we'll nominate you and we'd vote for you." So that's what sparked the interest, really, in saying, well, hang on a minute, let's if we've got, and a number of other people came up to me as well, just randomly. Obviously, with my profile being a central government politician and missing in October, they said that they would fancy me having a go. So here I am.
Thanks, Darroch.
Cheers.
And we are out of time. Thank you very much for joining us, Darroch.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
So that's all the time we have for this episode of the NPR and Manawatū Standard by-election special. Other episodes are available at npr.nz/show/by-election21, with the series also running during the first week of February, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. on NPR, 999 AM across Manawatū, or via the live stream at npr.nz. Of course, keep an eye on the Manawatū Standard for further coverage of the candidates and their campaigns, and ultimately the results being announced on the 22nd of February. And remember, your vote must be posted in a DX mailbox or directly to the council by 12 p.m. on Wednesday the 17th of February for it to count in this election. Thank you for joining us. Tēnā koutou.